So we're probably one of the first people walking here beside these tracks which you can see. You can see this big rock coming out of the ice. 45, 50 years back it was completely inside the ice, we didn't see it. For sure in the next years it will change very fast. And it makes ourselves thinking as well about the future, about the fresh water and the glaciers, how long they're going to be with us in Switzerland and or on all the world. It's a very sad thing happening, and we can contribute that it's perhaps getting a bit less fast, but I think we cannot stop it completely, at least not at this altitude for the glacier.
New today out of Georgia just this afternoon, another member of former President Trump's legal team popping up in Fulton County. Attorneys for JohnEastman confirming that he appeared in front of the grand jury investigating possible interference in the 2020 election there. He'd been subpoenaed. Also confirming he probably didn't say too much since they advised him to take the fifth where appropriate on attorney-client info, for example. You'll remember, I am sure, that Eastman was one of the central architects of the strategy to keep then-President Trump in power after he lost the election. And Eastman's attorneys today slammed what they call the criminalization of unpopular legal theories, comparing their client to John Adams, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and Thurgood Marshall. Let's bring in NBC's Ken Delaney in. And it is that quote, Ken, that I think is getting some attention here, because what Eastman did was not simply, the argument goes, unpopular. It may have actually been an illegal plot, right? That is what Georgia is investigating. Was there an undue plot to influence the election, to change the election results, essentially? Tell us more about what we know. Eastman, one of the first out-of-state witnesses that have been subpoenaed.
Exactly right, Hallie. And it's not just Georgia investigating John Eastman, who is a very conservative constitutional law specialist who was advising the Trump campaign. And by all accounts, as you said, he was the chief architect and perhaps most vocal advocate of the plan to block congressional certification of the 2020 election and to put forth alternate slates of electors in a bid to do that. And you'll recall that the Justice Department executed a search warrant in June and seized Eastman's phone, and that Eastman, of course, figured prominently in those public hearings held by the January 6th committee. And we all remember that former Deputy White House counsel testifying that he told Eastman to get a good criminal lawyer because he was going to need one. Eastman's connections to the Georgia investigation come from records that show he was in contact with Georgia lawmakers. A prosecutor in that case told the court recently that Eastman has inside information about how all this alleged interference in the election in Georgia in 2020 went down, as that prosecutor put it, and that he's a witness in this Georgia case, not a target. And as you mentioned, his lawyers are saying they took the fifth in response to these questions, and they, of course, accused the DA of seeking to criminalize controversial or disfavored legal theories, Hallie.
The detailed Justice Department court filing about the FBI's Mar-a-Lago search includes a sworn statement from a Trump lawyer that all sensitive documents had been returned to the government. And it includes this eye-popping photograph showing they most certainly had not all been returned to the government. Once again, choosing time for Republicans. The Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney sees, quote, yet more indefensible conduct by the former president. But Republicans on the House Judiciary Committee, who are led by Trump ally Jim Jordan, want you to ignore all those documents that belong under government lock and key, tweeting that Time magazine cover was a huge threat to national security. And listen here, this is South Dakota's Republican Governor Kristi Noem this morning, not raising questions about Trump, but about the FBI.
I don't know if the DOJ and FBI can be trusted to tell us what was in there. That's the thing. You can see folders, you can see big words on Do we know that that is really what President Trump brought to his home? Do we know that he put them there? Do we know what's inside?
With me now to share their reporting and their insights, Tarini Parti of the Wall Street Journal, Jackie Kucinich of the Daily Beast, and Yasmin Abu Talib of the Washington Post. Big words, Kristi Noem says. Well, some of those are just initials that talk about human sources overseas, that if they are undermined could do grave harm to them personally and to U.S. national security. But there are some Trump Republicans who just want to say no big deal.
I think there are a shrinking number of Republicans who are willing to say this is no big deal and to come out and defend the president. Jim Jordan is, of course, one of the former president's staunchest allies. But I think you're also seeing even President Biden more willing to engage on this issue. He's kind of wanted to stay away from it to not appear political, that he has somehow directed DOJ to investigate a former potential political opponent. And he's even spoken, pretty forcefully at this point about the threats on the FBI and the rhetoric coming from Republicans like Jim Jordan and other Trump allies attacking DOJ and FBI, saying it's a witch hunt or that there's no there there.
Is there any rethink among the most, Yasmin makes a very important point, is a shrinking number who are willing to step up and say there's no there there. If we could put that photo back on the screen, Jim Jordan would be the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. He would be a chairman of a committee that is in charge of looking at and reviewing executive branch actions, passing laws itself, reviewing executive branch actions. He wants you to focus on the far right of the screen. There's a box full of Time magazine covers. On the floor right there are incredibly sensitive documents that belong to the United States government, not to Donald J. Trump. It's not serious. You can, if you want to try to find a way to defend Trump, fine, but it's just not serious to point to the Time cover and ignore the mass of that photo.
That Twitter account in particular has been one that has served as more of a function of trolling than actual evidence gathering. And you have to imagine if Jim Jordan does end up leading the House Judiciary Committee, it will be more focused on the Biden administration than the Trump administration, as that role tends to be when the opposite party is in charge. However, the threats that the FBI and other law enforcement are experiencing are real. They're serious. They're intense. And I think that's why you saw some Trump allies, like a Lindsey Graham, who Biden sort of mentioned yesterday, not by name, try to backtrack a little bit about what he said. I mean, it was already out there. Who knows if anyone saw the backtrack? But there is an acknowledgement that this sort of language isn't good, particularly for the Republican brand of being for law enforcement as they push, but also for these law enforcement individuals who are putting themselves out there in harm's way.
To the flooding in Pakistan now. The UN Secretary General is calling it a monsoon on steroids. Pakistan's government saying the floods are the worst in the nation's history. More than 1,000 people have been killed. Roads, homes, bridges, all washed away, and millions of people have been displaced. So let's take you live to Badin in the south of Pakistan. We can join our correspondent Saha Balak, who is there. Good to see you. Can you explain what you've seen, what is happening there around you at the moment?
Well, you can see a line of tents behind me. These are some of the people who left their villages nearby and came to shift here because the water just refuses to leave their homes. A few days before, it rained over here, and since then the water has not been drained out. So people have made makeshift camps over here, and they have literally sort of based themselves in this place. And right now, the tents that they are using are some of the tents that were given to them during the floods of 2010 and 2011. So these people were holding on to these tents, and now they are reusing it while they are sitting here waiting for government to come in and provide some help or aid to them.
And Saha, is that happening at all? Is any aid managing to get through to these people?
Yes, to some extent, the aid is coming. Pakistan's army is providing relief, and then apart from that, the UAE government has provided relief to the Pakistani people. Turkey aircrafts have also reached Karachi and have given aid to Pakistan's government. So it's a bit slow to come to the people, but it is on its way, what we have been told. Because while I was standing here, there were 2 to 3 trucks of the Pakistan army with relief for the people, with aid for the people who came here. So most of the aid right now that is being provided to the people are tents and some sort of food and medicine. But these people are like, they want to move back to their homes right now. So what they need right now is an evacuation plan.
And what is the state of their homes? Are many of them completely submerged underneath water?
Yes, right now we actually went to one of the places over here. There is a place called Hayat Khaskheli village, and we visited that place, and most of the houses are submerged and they are underwater, and people literally left their homes at midnight and came to this place, and they have literally the most important things they got with them were their documents, for instance, their national identity cards, and some of their livestock. And the reason, one of the main reasons that they are not leaving this place is also because their livestock will be near them. Because otherwise, if they move to a government camp, it would mean leaving behind their livestock as well. So right now, people are waiting for aid, and they say that the water that came to their homes, inside their homes, was drain water, which was not timely, which did not timely got out. And this is something that a lot of people have complained over here, that it's been weeks since it rained over here, but the water is still here.
It's taking its time. So very good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us. The UN asking for $160 million now to what it is actually calling an unprecedented climate emergency.
My mission is a technical mission. It's a mission that seeks to prevent a nuclear accident and to preserve this important, the largest, the biggest nuclear power plant in Europe, in the whole of Europe, not only in Ukraine. So this is what we are concentrating on.